Hello, psychology students. I'm getting a few of your assignments in, especially the assignment A, the autobiography assignment, and I'm noticing a couple of writing errors that I thought I'd just run through and maybe give you a few suggestions on how to be able to improve that. And mostly I'm seeing issues in terms of fragments and run-ons. So we're going to actually correct that and see, or we're going to take a look at that and see if I can help you out a little bit. When you're writing, many of you are writing sentence fragments. So you know that a sentence is supposed to be a complete thought, and the fragment obviously wouldn't be a complete thought. I'm not sure if I like that type of explanation all the time because it seems to be hard to understand. I find it easier just to think of a sentence as always being a subject and a verb. No matter anything else that you put into a sentence, whatever, how long it is, if it doesn't have a subject or a verb, or subject and a verb, then you don't have a sentence. So think about this one, for example, Ramadan, the Muslim holy month. If you just read it, it sounds like something is missing. It doesn't sound complete, and it is missing something. It's missing a verb. In this case, plays hockey. Well, something is missing here as well. You wouldn't write that way. And what's missing here is the subject. Now, those are fairly easy to understand and to pick out, but sometimes you come across these clausal fragments. And what a clause is a clause is almost a sentence. A clause, in fact, has the same DNA as a sentence. It has a subject and a verb, or at least it has that structure. The problem with a clause fragment, though, is it'll be written in a way such that it cannot stand on its own. And that's something called a dependent clause. So look at this example. When Sittler scored. You actually have subject-verb structure. You have Sittler scored. Sounds good, right? But because of the way it's written with this when Sittler scored, it's written as a dependent clause, meaning it depends on something else around it in order to be able to function. Okay, so in this case, when Sittler scored, we have to correct it somehow. So when Sittler scored, the Gardens went wild, or when Sittler scored, the Leafs won the game. So if I were to correct these fragments, it's missing either a subject or a verb. So went out for supper, he went out for supper. Or the All-Star game finished, in this case it's missing a verb, the All-Star game finished last Saturday or last Sunday. Okay, so again, those are fairly easy to pick out and correct, just pure fragments. Maybe a clausal fragment a little bit harder. But run-on sentences are a different story, and partly is because I think people don't really understand what run-on sentences are. Many times I think people have this perception that a run-on sentence goes on and on and on and on and on. It's just a really long sentence. And that's not correct. You can have a 4-word, maybe even less, but I know a 4-word run-on sentence. He shoots, he scores. There's actually 2 sentences in there. So the key being there, a run-on sentence is when you are trying to cram 2 or more sentences into one. It's not necessarily a long sentence. Take a look at this example. The stunt pilot flew too low. She almost had a serious accident. Not really that long, but there's 2 sentences here. The stunt pilot flew too low, period, she almost had a serious accident. All right? Now, a lot of times we write long types of sentences because we want to be able to sound more sophisticated or intelligent. And sometimes the rule actually should be, when in doubt, write shorter sentences that are complete sentences, and your writing will flow better and sound much more better and be more articulate. All right, comma splice is related to a run-on sentence, and it's basically you're writing a run-on sentence, but you're using a comma where you should use a period, and that is what a comma splice is. So look at this example. Math is hard, it is challenging. We're using a comma when really we have 2 sentences and we should use a period. Math is hard, period, capital, it is challenging. There's 3 ways to correct run-on sentences, and they're actually pretty easy. You can use a comma and a coordinating conjunction. A coordinating conjunction is and, or, but, nor, for. So math is hard, comma, and then throw your coordinating conjunction in, and it is challenging. Math is hard, comma, but it is challenging. That's an acceptable way to correct a run-on. Use a semicolon. Math is hard, semicolon, it is challenging. The caveat here is that the second part of your sentence, the one coming after the semicolon, has to be directly related or closely related to the first. And you can use a semicolon and a conjunctive adverb. So another conjunction, but this is an adverb conjunction this time. Okay, so therefore and however would be examples of that. Math is hard, semicolon, however, period, it is challenging. Now I want to bring up another point that I've pointed out to a few of you as well. Sometimes you are actually writing two sentences, but you're starting a sentence with however. So you'll say math is hard, period, and then capital, however, it is challenging. Now because however is actually a conjunctive adverb, it shouldn't really function at the beginning of a sentence. Just like you wouldn't start a sentence with but or and normally, you shouldn't start a sentence with however either, or therefore would be another example. You should use this structure instead. Math is hard, put your semicolon in, then however should have a small case h and then a comma after it, and that corrects that as well. So just be aware of that and watch out for that when you're writing, and I think you'll avoid a lot of missed marks both in this class and maybe a few other classes down the road.